Well, welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Buzz Podcast with your host, Gary Johnson, and my wonderful co-host, as always, Mr. Marcus Grove. This show is presented to you by Buzz Report Media and Uplift Mobile, two media companies right here on the Gulf Coast is making a move in the media industry. And we are so glad that you joined and locked in with us on this wonderful and awesome Tuesday for another edition of Uplifting Buzz Podcast. And we're honored to have you here and have you join in to listen to us on today. We have some more interesting topics, and we're going back, look like we're going back to week one of this actual show, talking about some things that we've been talking about, some people that we've been talking about on the very first podcast. So just a reminder as we get into these topics that this is a non-biased show and podcast where we have non-biased dialogues and conversations about the things that are happening in and around us in this community here in Mobile, Alabama. We don't take sides with one person or the other. We just bring you the facts as they are happening and what's important to you. And that being said, we're going to jump right on into our podcast on today on this wonderful and awesome Tuesday. Mr. Grove, how did your weekend go since the last time we talked on Thursday? And what's new, man?
Yeah, so there's so much going on as far as the government shutdown, in local politics and local news. I'm doing well myself. I just think that it's so much to talk about in 1 hour on Uplifting Buzz podcast that I urge all of our listeners to, look and research on your own and look into the truth and see what's out there. It's interesting information.
Yeah, man. As we say always, man, when we leave the airways and prepare for another week or another day on the Uplifting Buzz podcast, there's something always happening. And indeed, again, there's more news out there that's happening, and the conversations are ongoing around these topics that we're going to talk about today. But very notable that you mentioned that the government shutdown is continuing, and Washington, the politicians that we elected or you all elected, seem like they can't get their act together. This is now the longest, or the second longest, from what I'm understanding, shutdown in U.S. history for the federal government. All because, one side do not want to negotiate or compromise on behalf of the American people, and they're only working to satisfy one man and 1% of the population, that is the wealthy and the rich, to make their pocketbooks more healthier, and to make the American people pocketbooks more lighter. And I read today, man, Mr. Grove, that this is shutdown is beginning to affect daycares, pre-K education. It's beginning to not only touch the lives of those that work in federal government, in the federal contractors, but the lives of everyday people that depend on the daycares and stuff while they're at work to try to make ends meet, to put food on their table, pay rent, car notes, or whatever else out there. And then I also read, man, I think over the weekend, or listening onto the news, that we're a week away from a lot of the payments to be coming from the federal government to start to be issuing, so the Social Security, SSI, disability benefits, and food stamps, so forth. And they'll say that it may be an interruption in or a pause in SNAP benefits, which as food stamps. People might not be able to buy food because of this shutdown. Then today, it was some type of relief, hopefully, with the Republicans, that they may be called back into session to go back into their caucus. The Republicans, to try to rewrite this spending bill Because if you notice, and this is what Uplifting Buzz is all about, keeping you informed and informing you about what's happening. There are 13 Republicans, moderate Republicans, that's not really with this um, government shutdown. And they have signed on, with Democrats are trying to save, even though they voted for this bill in the House, that's not really what they want. And they're doing this because party line, to be affiliated with the Republican Party, And as we said Thursday before we left the show, left the airways, Mr. Grove, we talked about fear and retaliation. And that's what a lot of these people are. That's how they're voting. That's how they're conducting themselves so they can align with Donald Trump and, and his political junkies to make them happy. And then at the end of the day, they can go back home happy and want to be worried about, losing, being challenged or losing a seat in Congress or the Senate. Like this North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis, they just forced him out because he went against Donald Trump or whatever it may be. But it's all about coming down to this healthcare situation. Nearly 15 million Americans will lose healthcare if this bill is passed in its current form. So we hope they can have some conversations, act like adults, and get in there this week and have something passed by next week to reopen this government, so the American people can feel some relief. The federal workers can get back to work or continue to work in peace. Our airports can feel safe. The TSA can continue to do their job as we continue to fly through these airports. The products being coming in this country overseas through these ports that can continue to be inspected and pass through perfect without any harm to the country or us as American citizens, so forth. I mean, there's a lot of things that's being affected by this government shutdown, and it could get much worse. If you look at it in the way that's it's written, but we hope that the Republicans can compromise and pull their draws up, act like adults, and work for the American people that send them there to do a job for them, and not just 1% of the American population, which they're currently trying to fight for. That being said, Mr. Grove, we got the former police chief of Mobile that ran for mayor and came in third place. He was looking to get into that runoff or come in first place. He did have a good following in the mayor race. He raised some money. I ain't gonna say he raised a little money. He raised a good. I mean, he didn't raise what Spiro and Drummond raised and Connor Hudson raised, but he raised some money, and he have established a name for himself in politics. So now people know who we are. People know what he stands for now. In some sort, I can't say that in full extent, but to some extent that the issues that was debated and talked about in the marriage race, we kind of know where Paul Prine stands. Mr. Grove, he's considering stepping into a larger arena and running for office again. I don't know whether it be on a local level. As you may mention that you may consider the chef race against Paul Birch next year. Because there'll be a lot of offices open next year. This up for election next year. One is the Senate District 34 race. Also, Congress, First Congressional District. He was thinking about that seat as well. So, that being said, man, what are your thoughts about Paul Prine jumping back into politics once again to run for office again and make himself available to serve the people of Mobile, Alabama?
Well, I think that he has a winning chance in either race that he goes into. I mean, like you said, he did assume a lot of attention, a lot of popularity. He was known as the people's mayor or the people's champion as far as going out to be mayor of Mobile. Well, he didn't win, and a lot of that can be contributed to the lack of funding that he raised. The controversy with him and the former mayor of Mobile, Sandy Stimpson, and the firing of Paul Prine. as well. I think that, he has a lot of legitimacy. His
Hmm.
candidacy has not really, or his legitimacy really hasn't been challenged to the point that it's negative. People like him. He's a smooth talker. He's a nice looking guy. And some people want to roll with certain different aspects of him. Now, and getting back into the political arena, I think that is the portion that did have kind of a negative effect on him. I mean, people kind of want you to stay in the arena that you grew up in, and for him, it was law enforcement. And in that regard, I think that if he did go out to attempt to go against Paul Birch, he would have a winning chance. I mean, Paul Birch has had have adulterated himself in the media with different things that he's said, he's done, and the recent Halloween lawn presentation that he displayed with with Mexicans running with sombreros
Yeah.
away from ICE agents. So I think that if he did go against Paul Birch, he would have a winning chance. And, this would come down to, at the end of the day, it wouldn't be Democrat against Republican when it comes down to Paul Birch against Paul Prime. It will come down to the ideals of um, many individuals that see and need a change. Even conservatives, I can see voting for Paul Prine over Paul Burch. So uh, I think that in a lot of ways, if he decides to go in the other direction, being a part of the more political system in Alabama, I think that he would be challenged fairly. But when it comes down to staying in his own lane and going against someone like uh, to be the sheriff of Mobile County, I think he has a winning chance at that for sure.
Yeah, and we could be seeing a two-person race, um, uh, Paul versus Paul. And then one of those may go to most certainly face a Democrat in the fall of 2026. Paul Birch, man, have really, like you say, he have really been in the news a lot lately. Not so much on a positive note. I know he want to be on there, tough, as a tough sheriff. Um, you know, in all reality, we know that a lot of this, stuff is more inclined to race and ability to, dictate from your political office that you hold. And same way with the decorations in his yard, how offensive that was to people, not just a few, uh, but many, and not just white or Mexicans, but some white people of his own race was offended as well because people are just tired of the race card. People are tired of just this racist propaganda. All of this stuff about race, decision making based on race and all this type stuff, people just really tired of it. A
Yeah,
lot of people don't talk about it, but people are just sick of it, man. They just sick of it. And it became such a heated issue. It forced them to take that down from their house. It's no longer
mm,
up, from what I'm
wow.
understanding. So they felt the heat of it. That everybody's not with you uh, on this race baiting situation.
Yeah. And if when it comes down to being popular and being out there in the media as he wants to do, you can do that. You have a very famous sheriff in Florida in Polk County, Gary Judd, who always goes on the media and talks about the idiocracy of the common criminal. And it's comical, people like it, but it doesn't boil down to being uh defined as against one political one color line and for the other. When it comes down to Paul Birch, you can clearly see the historical racist face of the South in everything he do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even allowing his wife to take the heat off of him when it comes down to the decorations of his yard. As a man, you have to be able to, and being a sheriff, you have to be able to say, hey, if it is her doing, which I don't believe, but if it is her doing, say, hey, let's do something else other than ICE agents chasing Mexicans.
Right. And even if it was his wife doing, man, you live in the same house as your wife. That's y'all property together. It's joint property, y'all property together. You have much to say as she does. You ought to say, well, baby, I mean, I don't think that's gonna be a good look for our yard and for the the image that we carry, the leadership role that I'm in. I don't think that'll be a great look. I mean, I think we need, like you said, I think we need to do something different, something better. Let's tailor more to the kids. Because they're gonna come by and want to, some some trick or treat, some candy, whatever. And let's make it exciting for our kids and our community, and not race baiting. But that wasn't said; it was just done. I mean, the Bible says. I'm not gonna use religion every time I come on the air, y'all. But everybody know I'm pastor, so. But hey, the Bible says, "So a man thinketh, so is he."
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say that. The Bible said it. And if you Christians, you conservative, whatever, if you will go by the Bible, you read the Bible, you live by the Bible, you read that. Okay? And so whatever you thinking in your heart and your mind, the Bible says, so is he. You are what you're thinking. Okay? So if you're thinking to put racist statues up in your yard like that, that's who you are. That's who you are. That's what you was thinking. That's in your heart. That's who you are. So
When it comes down to Paul Birch, I do think that he has a losing election. And a lot of it has to do with his character. Um, that subliminal type of figure of speech or talk that he does, or even someone like, Charlie Kirk, or, these individuals have freedom of speech and can say exactly what they want. But at the end of the day, there are people watching you, and just because they may be the same color as you, don't mean they always agree with you. And I think that, we can see a more honorable person in Paul Prine versus Paul Birch. I mean, if you think about it, Paul Birch and Paul Prine were, going, neck to neck at the whole uh, midnight raids into people's homes. You
yeah,
know, Paul Birch wants that. Paul Prine doesn't necessarily want that.
right. And Paul Birch also, man, inserted himself in preacher politics, man. Who he wanted to lead the city in Pritchard. And threatening this and that with city officials and the police department there in Pritchard. It's like he wanted to do what Trump is doing to Chicago and these other cities like Washington D.C. and Portland, Oregon, and places like that, Memphis, soon to be New Orleans, and maybe here in Alabama. But he wanted to just send the sheriff's department into the streets of Pritchard and just take over, like the National Guard. I mean, that's what he wanted to do. That's what he was talking. And don't people have they city government? If anything, aid them, help them, get them the resources and the tools to be effective. Train them even more. Be a support agent, not a takeover agent. Just because you want to show an upper hand and authoritism, it's it's a better way. It's a better way. He's not out there putting taking over chickens. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you. I talked to someone that's very familiar with Chickasaw politics. This white guy I was talking to, me and him sat down about 3 weeks ago. I meant to talk about this on one of our recent episodes. I'm going to talk about it. Matter of fact, I might bring him on. I found some interesting things about Chickasaw. Chickasaw is in deep trouble in Chickasaw, but it's not in the news. Nobody's talking about it. Like this guy, he told me how he and some others had to raise money to go purchase a stove for the brand new fire station where they firefighters at. So the firefighter can have a stove to cook meals for themselves because the city couldn't buy a stove. Do you understand what I'm saying? The city is financially broke in Chickasaw. They're barely hanging on. Now they have elected a new mayor to try hope to come in, help bring some more revenue in, cut back and the spending and so forth as he was talking. But you don't find Paul Birch going to Chickasaw or Saraland and Satsuma threatening to take over. Oh, they don't have the crime as preacher. Oh, yes, they do. It's just not talked about. It's just not talked about. You know, they got it, but it's just not talked about like Pritchard and Mobile or some of the other places because, you know, it's the opposite way in numbers. If y'all understand what I'm saying, you know, and I'm just fair. I mean, and this is what this show is about: being fair. This is a non-biased show. I don't take up for nobody. I'm not taking up for Pritchard, and I'm not taking up for Sarah Land. I'm not taking up for nobody. I'm just bringing the facts. You know, it's happening, but it's just not being talked about. All the calls that come into 911, the assault, the robberies, the thefts, and all that, it's just not talking. Only those that get leaked out, that you know, so it's worthy then. But 9 times out of 10, it's just let's go out there, handle it, you know, and keep it under the rug and call it a day. Let's talk to them. That's that. Over in Pritchard, man, you know, they want to treat it like a third world country and just go in there and rack up and or make arrests. There's more money for the sheriff department, there's more money for the county, more money for the courthouses, you know, the jailhouse. Let's pack it out. Matter of fact, let's build a new jailhouse. If a new jail moved, that was the question during the Mayoral race. You know, if they move from downtown, where do they put it? Do they put it in the old Happy Hill? Somewhere downtown? You know, Paul Birch said, don't build a new jail. Build a barrier around it where the water can keep the water from flooding the jail out. You know? But, what's the name? K. Ivy. Governor K. Ivy. You know, when it got buzzed to be a billions-dollar prison. Not millions of dollars of prison, billions of dollars for prisons to enlarge it that big enough to put more people in it. And the majority of the people going in there is people of color. And that's what they want. They want they got to send you up the road to make more money out for you, or send you downtown to make more money out for you. You know, so I mean, I'm with you, man. This may be a Paul versus Paul race. You know, and if he don't, whatever race he get into, man, it's gonna be very interesting. He got a following, and I think this time around he'll be able to raise more money, and he'll have more presence. You know, and people may take it more serious this time. You know, because they thought that the first time we all knew why he was running for mayor. It's because he got, you know, as you said, relieved of his duties for chief, and he thought that was unjustified, you know, and he wanted some get back. We know that he wanted to be in charge, but that didn't happen. The people didn't put him in charge. But now, you know, he can make a case and a new case, in a run for a different office, and that was may about to happen after the holidays. He announcing because it may be before this year out because primary is in May, and you got to build a campaign, you got to build it now. And you got no time to wait. And that being said, Mr. Grove, man, we published a news article today on the Buzz Report at buzzreportnews.com about the newly elected mayor. The newly elected mayor, I was talking to some city workers, and man, they said the new mayor hasn't even met with them. They haven't even seen them. But you know, and him and Stanley Simpson just going around meeting, shaking hands with their political friends, you know, making like that's news. You know, the governor's supposed to help Mobile regardless who's in office. Okay, let's establish that. You know, she's the governor of Alabama. And so goes Mobile, so goes the state of Alabama. I'm just going to put it like that because we have the largest port on the Gulf Coast or in the region. And if the port goes, Alabama goes. So I mean, the revenue. I mean, all of that is here on the coast. You know, Birmingham and Huntsville don't have what Mobile have. You know, so that being said, man, they saying that they haven't heard from him. He haven't met with them. He haven't shared his ideals. He haven't asked for their concerns. How things can be improved. What to expect from him coming in 2 weeks. He be sworn into mayor. They don't know people gonna be laid off. They don't know offices gonna be changed. New leadership in these directorships. They don't know. And another strange thing is you haven't heard from Spiro since election. You haven't. You haven't heard about a transitioning team who was a part of the transitioning team. Who's possibly going to be in the administration? Is there going to be changes? We already know there's not going to be much change. That's why they're keeping it on the wraps. Because it's been talked about the whole campaign, why he even got in the race, why he even got the endorsement. But there's none of that. He's not even holding listening sessions to going around into these districts and these parts of the city to gauge input from the citizens of the city that you wish to serve. You know, I understand you had a campaign and there were forums. At the forums, people asked questions, but that was political forums. That wasn't on a more local level and a neighborhood level, a community level. You know, issues that really wouldn't even get talked about. You know, I mean, you're not presenting no plans on how you're going to fight crime, how you're going to increase community development to make it fair for all. You know, what you're going to do to attract more jobs. I mean, we know he never held an office like this. We understand he got elected judge. He's in politics and the legal realm. But this is a new atmosphere. And to not even see his presence, not even to hear from him, or he's not even being talked about, man, I'm telling you, man, it's strange.
It is strange. I did read the article in its entirety. Prior to reading it, I did see pictures swirling about with, of course, Kay Ivey, who I'm just not a fan of, Sandy Simpson, and Spiro Cherrigotis in the same room.
Yeah.
And it is a continuation of the old South, you know, and we have to understand that for what it is. I think that in a lot of ways, it is important to meet with your workers, your people in the city of Mobile, to hear them out, to hear what they have to say. I mean, after all, everybody that works for the city of Mobile currently have more experience than Spiro Cherrigotis with the city of Mobile. I mean, he was just a lawyer, you know, and he was put into his judgeship place, which, you know, in any other city in the United States, you know, he would have had way more judges ahead of him, whereas he would still been just a lawyer. And so, in a lot of ways, you know, when you have a governor who puts people into places, um, you know, if you really look back and see how someone in his caliber who just graduated law school, what, in 2011, you know, when you look at something like that and you really examine it, you have to realize that it was Sandy Simpson all along who ushered Spiro into that spot, into the judgeship school, and then continuing to usher him to be that good old boy in that good old boy club with someone like Sandy Simpson and then of course the governor. So why should someone like spiritual Cherrigotis go against even the Secretary of State going for the lieutenant governorship? You know, of course, they both went to Alabama. I mean, when you look at all of that in its entirety, they're all going to go for each other. It's not going to be any type of, you know, one person against the next just because of their views. They're aligned because of the party. It don't have anything to do with their views. Their views is null and void because we're in the same party. And so when I see that, and I see the fact that he hasn't met with anybody, the problem is he's not interested in meeting with anybody. And I think that in a lot of ways, they're still um, they're still pushing the idea that Sandy Stimson is still in office, so he's not obligated to meet with anybody, um, which could be at play here. And so he's just doing everything he needs to do prior to him actually getting in office, because at that time it is going to be time to actually work. So he's just doing the preliminary stuff. But at the same time, like you said, we don't know his plan and the experience that we're hoping that he have. It, it hasn't been seen. Forget the fact that he's a lawyer and a judge. We know uh, the office of lawyer and judgeship has deteriorated is over the years. I mean, we know there's people out there who become those things just because. So let's just forget about the legitimacy of it and understand that he's still a person, and he needs to get the understanding of the people prior to, you know, taking over office. And if this was Paul Prine, he would have already circulated the county more than once already since becoming. They were already had a parade. It would have already been. It would have already been a celebration almost. He would have been hugging, shaking hands, and doing that sort of thing. It is a different type of atmosphere that we see and feel having this good old boy, network going on between, the former administration and what's here to come.
Right. Right. Man, yeah. I don't know how you plan on being an effective leader if you can't make yourself available to the people that you are elected to serve. Leave that there and move on to the next thing, man. Your favorite topic, and that's District 2 in the city of Mobile. We are near that date that we shall hear again from these attorneys in the courtroom before Judge Helmbright in this challenge, election challenge against Samantha Ingram. And that was some developing news over the last couple of days in that race. What you got?
Well, the thing is that in the last couple of days, William Carroll's party, I say party because he has a slew of attorneys on his side, including the great nephew of Dogby herself. So, the Zogby Act is named after Zogby, who passed away this year, but she was um, in and deep into Mobile politics back in the 1980s. And she actually helped to author the Zogby Act, into which her great nephew is a lawyer or an attorney on William Carroll's side. So, and to my knowledge, he has 3 attorneys, so that's why I say party. But so his camp did publish and file some papers, trial briefs to Judge Hambright. As of yet, I have not seen much from Samantha Ingram's side, but I have seen a lot of papers acknowledging the attorney general at the state levels, understanding of the law, which is dated 2014. Their understanding of the law versus the Zogby Act and the general election law. So they're pulling the strings. I mean, William Carroll has definitely, short of mortgaging his house, he's definitely pulling out some money for these attorneys, which is interesting, considering that if we did see another election on the horizon, will he actually win? I think that's enough to think about, But at any rate, I do see this case on Friday, the 24th, at 10 o'clock downtown. I do see it maybe deliberating even a little further. But if not, I do see William Carroll coming out victorious.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I kind of feel that this is leaning more towards Carroll than Ingram. But who am I to say? And it may shock many people, as myself, that it goes towards her.
Okay.
Uh, as I said a couple weeks ago, just to take it back, when I uh, said that, in my opinion, that the races on this lawsuit's on Carol's side is because that Zachary Act. When the city of Mobile passed that in concurrence with local elections for the city of Mobile, establishing a qualification for candidates to run for office here on a local level. Same thing Montgomery can do for their city offices. Same thing Birmingham can do. Same thing Huntsville. Same thing Daphne passed an ordinance that sets qualifications for their local offices. Now, but it's conflicting when you have the state and you're within a state that has conflicting laws for candidates for all offices. You have the state saying one thing, and then you have the city saying one thing. But one thing to note that's important to look at is that in the midst of these two laws that they are referencing, one from the state, one from the city, which is the Zachary Act, none of them is concurrent. None of them is tied into each other. They just have two separate laws on the books, one for the city, one for the state. And you really just can't tie both of them into each other because it's not that way. And that's what the judge is looking at, and looked at the opinion of the attorney general and all that type stuff. But and again, I say this: what happens in the upcoming races that's about to take place for 2026, such as Governor Tuberville? With this case having an effect on his race, let's look at Birmingham. Birmingham just had their runoff elections this month as well. A friend of mine up there that I was talking about in the last week that won the school board race was challenged immediately after he won and found out that his challenger that was endorsed by the mayor Birmingham challenged his residency, and he won his case. The judge tossed it out. His challenger, she wanted to say that he moved out of the district a few weeks before the election, which that's not grounds for a challenge. I mean, you can't prove the new residency and what's where he is, and just because he won a race and you want to bring it up now 2 weeks. Come on now. So I'm just saying. I mean, we don't know where this case going to land up. We don't know where it's going. Whose side is going to fall on? For real, for real. Like I said, it looks like Kerr got the upper hand, but where does it see it with other candidates moving forward, which is a residential requirements in the state of Alabama? Would it have an effect on their races?
Yeah. I mean, I would say when it comes to, the greater Alabama, the 90-day rule applies, and, the Zogby Act is just so unique that it pushes that 90-day rule to 12 months, Now, when it comes down to people like Tommy Tuberville, we know that he has houses even in Florida. We know that he has a tax exemption on his house in Alabama, and he doesn't have a tax exemption in the houses in Florida. which kind of alludes to, you know, the one in Alabama being his main homestead. Well, I think that when the government or people look at that and really understand what taxation is and property taxation is and exemptions on taxes, because you can only have that tax exemption on one home uh, at his age. What we really look at is that he doesn't pay taxes on the one in Alabama, which means that for a person who has the money, who has the ability to pay on a home, he instead he has an exemption. Now, does Florida versus Alabama need taxes paid on property more than Alabama? No, Alabama needs those property taxes, but
Mm-hmm.
he has strategically put an exemption on his home in Alabama, and I'm sure he's had it for a while. But at the same time, now it's coming to fruition that is actually being applied and utilized for a good purpose. And now is actually going for what he's trying to do, which is run for office in the state of Alabama, which I would have to say, it seems like we're back in the 1940s again, with this whole, not really many Democrats. Um, Not many of the other party getting into office, and it's quite unfortunate. You still have um, single-minded individuals who are getting into this platform who still look at others not with their content of their character, but they're grouping characterization with others. So instead of looking at you neutrally, they're looking at you negatively because you're a certain color, because their own fear and their own mindset that they have for people of that certain color. So it's quite unfortunate, and I think the only way to truly get to the point where you don't judge so harshly or so much or so single-mindedly, like in groups, is you have to be around different types of people, you know, and people like Tommy Tupperville, Kay Ivey, Sandy Stimson, they're not around a lot of different people. They're around the same-minded people who suck up to them, who kiss up to them, who love up on them, who looks like them, who plays that race card along with them, who plays that Republican mindset ideology along with them. And so when we look at them and wonder and hope that they actually grow into this great leader, their leadership continuously is diluted by the fact that they isolate themselves with people like themselves. They have to learn and go to different places, to understand others. I look at Spiro Cheragadas and how he went to that black church and got hands laid upon him. That was a one-off type of situation. He
Yeah.
isn't going to go back to that church again.
Right.
Even for people like himself, what we're getting here in the city of Mobile, where we're going to get, if we keep playing around with this Tommy Tuberville situation, is similar good old boy Southern Republican mindset in office, where we could have gotten something else. We could have gotten Barbara Drummond. We can get someone else for the lieutenant governor instead of the secretary of state moving into that spot. We can get somebody else other than Tommy Tuberville, but we're not choosing to. And mainly is those, poverty-stricken conservatives living in those, one-bedroom, trailers that are voting for these individuals. And
You're
that's
right.
just real.
You're right, man. And we got to wake up and pay attention and watch what's going on in this world of politics. Just as the news broke this past weekend that Justice Kavanaugh is considered to be that one vote in favor of killing the 1965 Voting Rights
Mm,
Act as we know
mm,
it. And that we'll have less representation in public office, people of color, and Republican rule, and have a supermajority all over the country and in the federal government as well. And that's what Donald Trump wants. And they're giving him again just what he wants. As they promise to be fair, uphold the Constitution and the laws of this land. And basically what they have done is lied to us in our face to get what they want, get a paycheck, get a title, get power, and just kick us under the rug. So that's exactly what's happening. So in 2026, it behooves every soul that's eligible to vote that remains on the voter rolls to show up to the polls to vote in the primaries and the general election in 2026. It should be long lines, like the same lines you go and stand at clubhouses, football games, whatever you want to do in the streets. You should be doing the same thing with your political process. Let your voice be heard. Save your rights. Fight for somebody else, so we all can have equal rights. That being said, that concludes our topics for today, Mr. Grove. Open enrollment have started for Medicare, and we know that you are working diligently on that. And share with the people how they can get in contact with you and what service that you can offer to them while we are in open enrollment.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. We're in open enrollment. We started on, goodness, it seems like, 12 days ago now. But so if you want to get into open enrollment and want to get into a good plan in the state of Alabama, in the state of Florida, for the listeners there, go to www.workwithgip.com. There's an enrollment button where you can do the Medicare survey, or you can call the number that's there. Call the number, speak to someone to actually set up your appointment. And get enrolled. You know, this is people who are 65 and older, and also people who are disabled individuals who qualify for Medicare, Medicaid as well. You know, the big beautiful bill did have an impact on eligible individuals on Medicaid. But see if you're, you know, if you have your red, white, and blue card, if you did get that in the mail, then you're eligible. So sign up. Contact us at www.workwithgip.com.
All right, and that does it for today. If y'all don't have that health care, get your health care plan. Call or visit that website. Make sure you allow Mr. Grove and his team to assist you in getting the proper health care and the proper plans to suit your health care needs. It's open enrollment if you want to switch and you don't like the current company you with. You have the opportunity to do so. Make sure you visit that website at workwithgip.org. Is that correct?
.com. Yes, thank you.
.com. All right. All right. Y'all make sure y'all go visit that website and learn all about this company and these individuals and let them assist you in making that happen for you. Until Thursday. On this Thursday, we'll be coming back with some more great conversations right here on Uplifting Buzz podcast. And thank you again for joining us. Please visit our website, visit all our outlets to stay abreast of our podcast. Share it with your friends and your family and ask them to join you in listening to Uplifting Buzz podcast. Until Thursday, God bless you.